When I told my parents I'd been promoted to director at one of the largest financial firms in the state, my mother smiled the way you smile at a child's drawing and said, "That's cute, honey." 4 months later, at their 30th anniversary party, my company's CEO walked through my parents' front door asking for me by name, and my mother had to ask a room full of her friends who exactly that was. If you've ever had your biggest achievement reduced to a pat on the head, hit subscribe now because this story is for every single one of you. Let me know in the comments what the most dismissive thing anyone's ever said about your career has been. Now here's how we got to that anniversary party. My name is Priya Shah. I'm 31 and I've spent the last 9 years building a career in institutional finance while my parents, quietly, consistently, treated it as a placeholder for the life they actually wanted for me. My younger brother, Arav, went to medical school, and from the day he got his acceptance letter, he became the fixed point around which every family conversation orbited. I don't say that with bitterness exactly, more with the exhausted clarity of someone who's done the math on it for almost a decade. My parents, Raj and Meena Shah, immigrated to the United States in their 20s with almost nothing, and I understand, intellectually, why certain professions became sacred to them in a way that felt non-negotiable. Doctor, engineer, something with a title everyone in their community immediately recognized and respected without explanation. When I chose finance instead, my father asked, genuinely confused, "But what do you actually do, though?" As though my entire industry were some elaborate hobby I'd talk myself out of eventually. Every family gathering for 9 years followed the same rhythm. Arav would arrive and conversation would turn immediately to his rotations, his research, the attending physician who'd praised his diagnostic instincts. I would arrive and conversation would turn to whether I'd met anyone yet, whether I was eating enough, whether this banking thing was really what I wanted long term. When I made associate at 26, my mother's response was, "That's wonderful, Beta. Is it stable though?" When I made vice president at 29, 3 years ahead of my firm's typical timeline, my father asked if it came with better hours, so I'd have more time to settle down properly. The promotion to director came at 31, and it wasn't a small thing. Director at Whitfield Sterling Capital meant I now oversaw a portfolio management team of 14 people and reported directly to the firm's CEO, Marcus Whitfield himself, a notoriously private man who almost never involved himself in anything below the executive floor. I'd earned Marcus's direct attention over 18 months by restructuring a client portfolio that had been quietly bleeding money for years, a fix nobody else in the firm was willing to attempt because it meant telling 3 senior partners they'd been wrong. I told them anyway. I was right. Marcus noticed. I called my parents the evening the promotion was finalized, genuinely excited, the kind of excited I hadn't let myself feel in front of them in years. My mother's response, verbatim, was, "That's cute, honey. Director of what, exactly? Is that like a manager?" My father, in the background, added, "As long as it doesn't push back the wedding conversation further." I stopped correcting them after that call. Some exhausted part of me decided that continuing to explain my career to people who'd already decided its ceiling wasn't worth the energy anymore. So when their 30th anniversary party came around 4 months later, a lavish affair at a banquet hall with nearly 200 guests from their community, I attended quietly, answered the usual questions about marriage prospects with practiced patience, and let my mother introduce me to her friends the way she always did. "This is our daughter Priya. She works in banking downtown." Not director, not Whitfield Sterling, just banking downtown. The career equivalent of a shrug. About an hour into the party, there was a small commotion near the entrance. I heard my mother's voice, confused, slightly flustered, the voice she uses when something doesn't fit the script she's prepared. I turned to see Marcus Whitfield, my CEO, 61 years old, silver-haired, unmistakably out of place in a room of my parents' community friends, standing in the doorway in a tailored coat, looking distinctly like a man who'd come directly from somewhere important. "I'm looking for Priya Shah," he said to my mother, who was standing nearest the door. "I understand this is her parents' anniversary celebration. I hope I'm not intruding, but I have news I wanted to deliver in person, and I was told I might catch her here." My mother, visibly confused, called out, "Priya, someone's here for you," in the tone you'd use for an unexpected delivery. I walked over and Marcus's face broke into the kind of genuine smile I'd only seen him from twice before, both times after closing major deals. "Priya," he said, loud enough for the immediate cluster of guests to hear clearly. "I tried calling you twice this afternoon, and when you didn't pick up, I decided this couldn't wait until Monday. The board approved the Meridian acquisition restructure this afternoon, unanimously, based entirely on your model. You just saved this firm $40 million in projected losses over the next 3 years, and honestly, I wanted to be the one to tell you myself, in person, tonight." The room around us had gone quiet in that specific way rooms do when they sense something significant happening they don't yet understand. My mother stood frozen, looking between Marcus and me, clearly trying to reconcile banking downtown with a silver-haired man in a tailored coat who'd driven across the city on a Saturday night to personally deliver $40 million of good news. "I'm sorry," she said carefully, "and you are—" Marcus extended his hand warmly. "Marcus Whitfield. I'm Priya's CEO at Whitfield Sterling Capital. Your daughter runs one of the most important portfolio teams in the firm. Honestly, Mrs. Shaw, I don't say this lightly, but she's one of the sharpest minds I've worked with in 30 years in this industry, and I've worked with quite a few." My father had made his way over by this point, and I watched his expression shift through several stages: confusion, recognition of the name Whitfield Sterling from somewhere, and finally something that looked almost like alarm at how badly he'd misjudged the scale of what I actually did. Marcus stayed only another few minutes, congratulated me once more, shook my father's hand, and left as unexpectedly as he had arrived, leaving behind a room full of my parents' friends who had just watched, in real time, my mother's careful 9-year narrative about my cute little banking job collapse in front of everyone she'd spent the party impressing. My mother pulled me aside near the coat closet, her voice low. "Why didn't you tell us it was this serious?" she asked. "Mom," I said, and I let myself say it plainly for the first time in years. "I told you I made director 4 months ago. You asked if that meant I was a manager. I've been telling you how serious this is for 9 years. You just kept deciding it wasn't." My father, standing nearby, added quietly, $40 million, Priya. That's not a small thing. "No, it never was. You just needed someone else to say it in a tailored coat before you believed me." The weeks after that party were quieter than I expected. My mother didn't apologize outright, not in the dramatic way I might have once wanted her to. Instead, she started asking real questions, small ones at first: what a portfolio restructure actually involved, why it had taken 18 months, whether the other partners had really been wrong the whole time. My father, in his own way, began introducing me differently at family gatherings. Director at Whitfield Sterling, careful to get the title right, still visibly uncomfortable with how much space my career now took up in a family story that had been built around my brother's firm for a decade. Arav, to his credit, was the one who said the most honest thing. "I think we all just let Mom and Dad's version of success be the only one worth talking about," he told me over the phone a few weeks later. "I got the easy version of pride because my job has a name they already understood. Yours took longer to explain, and none of us bothered to actually listen long enough to explain it." I think about that anniversary party sometimes, not with anger anymore, but with a kind of tired clarity. Some families need a stranger with a title to walk through the door before they believe what you've been telling them all along. It's not fair, but I've learned it doesn't make the achievement any less real while you're waiting for them to catch up. Has your family ever needed someone else's validation before they took your success seriously? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this hit close to home, send it to someone who's still waiting for their own version of that tailored coat to walk through the door. Until next time, this is Priya, reminding you that your worth was never waiting on anyone else's permission to be real.